So since I've started photography, everyone always talks about a nifty 50. And today we have a beast of a lens, an aperture f1.2 50mm lens from Sigma. Now I've tested this in scenarios with landscape photography, nature photography, and as well as portrait photography. And as with most lenses, there's some pros and some cons with it. It might be a king for portrait photography, but is it really worth it for landscape or nature photography? We're going to talk about that, but let's go and first dive into the technical specs of this lens. So here's the Sigma 50mm f1.2 DG/DN art lens. You can find this lens new for around $1,400. It has a maximum aperture of f1.2, so great for low light scenarios. Something that I really love about most Sigma lenses is it has an aperture ring, so you can adjust the aperture on the lens. I just feel like, for me personally, I'd rather do that on the lens than the camera. It has an autofocus, manual focus switch. And speaking about manual focus, it does have a very smooth manual focus ring. In fact, dare I say, it's probably my favorite that I've tried so far out of the Sigma line. And as far as size, it is kind of big for what it is. It weighs in at 740 grams, and the size of its filter is 72 millimeters. Those are the high-level technical specs of this lens. If you want more details, there's people that go into that more than me. This is more of a user experience type review, not a technical review. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into test photos and test videos that I took using this lens. First, let's go ahead and take a look at the photos. The photos out of this lens were very crystal sharp and clear. Especially when doing portrait photography, I honestly really liked how all the portraits looked using this lens. Playing around with portrait photography and an aperture of f1.2 gives you the opportunity to have some pretty decent creativity, giving a nice blurry background. That way your audience is drawn right to the portrait. With an aperture of f1.2, this also exceeds very well in low light photography. So here's a couple shots after the sun went down during blue hour. I really like how they came out. Now, as far as landscape nature photography is concerned, I don't really think 50 millimeters for me. I'm sure it's good for a lot of people, but I was either wanting something a little bit more wide or a little bit more zoomed in. 50 millimeters, at least from my experience, just didn't feel quite comfortable when shooting landscape photography. That being said, the shots were nice and crystal clear, but again, I stress it's just not my favorite focal length. If you're looking at this lens for a portrait lens, it probably is a decent option for you. But if you're looking at this lens as a landscape, nature, wildlife photographer, there's quite a few options that I think are quite a bit better than this. I did also want to do some video tests. The weight of this lens is a big drawback, but when you're shooting video handheld, it helps stabilize the footage quite a bit. I can definitely see how this lens would be used for like wedding videography or shooting some sort of cinematic short for yourself. I thought the video quality that came out of it was extremely crystal clear, but again, it's a Sigma lens. I've had this similar experience with all of their lenses, so it's not really a plus or minus. This just kind of forces you to focus on that 50 millimeter range, but also gives you the added capabilities of an f1.2, so that way if you're shooting or filming in low light, that's going to help you out quite a bit. So the biggest pros to this lens, I would say, is portrait photography. By far, I can't really recommend it for anything else. Major cons are it's big and bulky. The weight is kind of a big con for me. I wouldn't necessarily want to take this out hiking because of its size. And while yes, 50 millimeters is a great focal length for portrait photography, I personally would opt into using an 85 millimeter when available. All right, guys, so I hope my thoughts helped you out a little bit making your decision. If you have any thoughts or comments about this lens or any other photography thing, please let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope I get you the next one.